Hey everybody, welcome to Skeptarchy. I am Eric Standing, and these are my fellow hosts.
I'm Corey.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm Dell.
And what do we got tonight?
I was wanting to start off on a positive note, but I was scrolling through Facebook, and I think this needs to be brought to the attention of the public in whatever way possible. There was, in Edmonton, not far, about 45 minutes from where my daughter lives, there was a truck that has been recorded, a pickup truck, white Chevy it looks like, and it is covered in blood smears. Missing and murdered Indigenous women hands on the tailgate, looking as though, somebody had their hands against there, however you want to take that. All lives splatter stickers and all this kind of stuff. So clearly it looks like the young man driving this is okay with, the history of rape and murder of Indigenous women that are happening in Alberta and British Columbia. And he feels that he needs to display this to the public. So I feel that if he, given that he's decided that, I personally am going to email, write, and call the Edmonton Police Service non-emergency number and just express my concern for my loved ones in the area. I would encourage any listeners to do the same as well. I'm going to, as we scroll through this, see if I can come up with a plate number as well as the RCMP non-emergency hotline to share. So
yeah, there's a plate number right there, eh?
Yeah, if you can get it any bigger or anything like that, I don't.
Sure.
There must be. I wonder. Well, I don't know anything about Canada. Really, I know about Canada, but there has to be a rule that you can't just put fake blood indicating that you've just murdered people all over your truck, right? That's got to be covered under something. I'm sure in America we'd have some sort of bullshit free speech thing, but
One would assume it would fall under some sort of hate speech law, for sure. So,
oh, you guys get to have those there. That must be nice.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
the bar is quite high.
But maybe some sort of obscenity law, because you're that's traumatizing for anyone. I scrolled through and saw the pictures, Eric. That's disgusting to anyone, even if it wasn't racist. Why would someone, you know what I'm saying? Would you really want little kids seeing that?
Right. Regardless of who it's directed to, it's in poor taste, to say the very least. It's absolutely hateful and murderous. And I'm just looking for the number here. Edmonton Police Service Headquarters is area code 780-423-4567. 780-423-4567. To the listeners, if you can, just give a call, say where you're calling from, say that you saw this and that you're concerned. I personally would appreciate that greatly.
Good to know.
I can just imagine, there's got to be rules, otherwise, people could just put up a billboard that was graphic violence. There's got to be rules about.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be able to just say that you think somebody should be killed, right? And while this doesn't use the words, I think these people should be killed, it sends that message pretty clearly. Although actually the one sticker does say, it shows somebody driving over protesters. Apparently this is a thing that somebody made. I don't know.
Yeah, that's horrible and terrifying.
And, the majority of people in Alberta are level-headed. I would like to think, that I know. So I'm sure that that this will be dealt with. I'm not assigning this behavior to all Albertans by any means, Just a unfortunate, hateful thing that does exist on the prairies, and it is just, undeniable, systemically or individually at this point.
Yeah.
Awful.
But moving on to other things I have discovered in my internet wanderings, the Land Needs Defenders movement looks really neat. I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but it is a movement. It looks like started by Canadian Indigenous people to defend the land, for lack of a better word. So they've got several projects going whereby they're offering support to land defenders, water defenders, and just making people aware of what is happening, I guess, on Turtle Island with our shared resources.
Indeed.
I'm not familiar with Turtle Island.
Turtle Island is the name that some North American indigenous bands called North America. Basically, the entire continent is Turtle Island.
I see. I've definitely heard some Native American creation stories with the whole turtle thing, but I did not make the connection. Thank you.
Yeah, there was some protests on an airstrip or something not that long ago. I'm trying to find it now, but I can't recall. I think there was multiple nations trying to stop it was a mining operation or something, and they required this landing strip to get supplies, and they were basically blockading it and not letting anybody land or take off.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that was up north somewhere, wasn't it?
I think so.
Well, yes,
yeah.
we're find it interesting to those mines sometimes, like a royal family member will come visit or something, and all of a sudden Diovic has this massive diamond to present to them, and sometimes I feel some of those places could be better located.
Yeah.
They actually give them diamonds? That's
It has happened, I guess.
Weird. There's all the mines around here are not exciting things like that. They're not even things you've heard of. Weird minerals that are used for other stuff. I don't know.
I think for the most part, a lot of their diamonds they get out of there for drill bits. They're not really super fancy.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's totally the big, yeah.
I figured small industrial diamonds like that were mostly made in labs now.
I would hope they'd be shifting that direction.
Yeah.
I know natural diamonds are one of those things millennials are killing, because a lot of millennials actually like the idea of a lab-grown diamond, which historically was... I mean, they're killing diamonds in general because they're not that excited about diamond rings or diamonds, but...
and also, who the fuck has the money to afford diamonds in this economy?
But there's a false scarcity. Buy them now.
Oh, yes. I'm sure De Beers is just suffering so much these days.
How dare we have the audacity to not be able to afford luxury goods? The fuck is wrong with us?
Right. I understand you're also killing the lobster industry. Oh, Dell.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. My roommate was making so much fun of me because I think Red Lobster is fancy dining. And apparently on the East Coast, that is not.
Oh
no! Where I lived in California, Red Lobster and Olive Garden were the fancy dining options.
Yeah, Red Lobster is the fanciest place I could eat. Okay, if I didn't happen to live near the metro, it's the fanciest place you can eat, not in the metro area in this entire state.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Red Lobster's the highest class food you can get around here.
I put on different clothes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. There's fancy that you can afford, and then there's the places that rich people go.
Yeah.
Right? We have, I think, 1 or 2 restaurants here in Regina that I can't afford to eat at. At least 1 or 2.
See,
but Red Lobster is fancy.
We have that in greater Minnesota. Like outside of the metro, like I don't even think we have anything more expensive than Red Lobster. I don't know.
I had a professor ask that once, what a fancy restaurant in the area was, and my reply was Earl's. I don't know if there's an Earl's in America, but it's somewhere along, like sports bar, Red Lobster-y type place. And apparently that was not the fanciest restaurant in the area. So.
Oh, no.
Earl's is pretty fancy. I don't know.
It was to me.
You can go in for supper and spend $200 or $300. So,
I mean, I've never heard of it.
Fucking fancy to me.
Anywhere where I can sit on a patio and look down at passersby, I consider to be quite fancy.
Wow.
Look down condescendingly, I might add.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, who doesn't love looking down condescendingly at all the plebes walking underneath you?
I suppose one of the ways that somebody might register, like, is it fancy, is can you get food delivered through DoorDash from there? And if you can, it's probably not fancy.
Fair enough.
I can't get anything delivered through DoorDash. So
well, everything is fancy then.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I can now. I haven't checked since the pandemic started, and I can imagine that the pandemic may have expanded the range of things like DoorDash. Like, I'm sure I could get Instacart now. I know, like, a year ago, I could not get Instacart, but I bet I could now.
Insert joke about sweet, secluded little farm girl here.
I'm really not rural. My aunt can't even order pizza, and they graduate 10 to 12 children in their graduating class every year, and the school is still 30 minutes from them. So, like, that's rural. They live near Canada.
That sounds about like where I moved from, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, like, most of North Dakota is like that, right? Like,
about there, yeah. 10, 12 graduating class and, 45-minute bus ride for all of them for sure. And then it's kind of like a half circle, too, when you're that close to the border, especially now. But even pre-COVID, a lot of people don't cross there. But
yeah. Yeah, so I can commute to the city for work. So, like, I'm not even remotely rural compared to that. But
why don't we have drone delivery yet? And even if we did, I wonder if it would work in this cold. I have heard of it for like hunting and fishing places where the chalet or whatever lodge will load up a drone, and you just punch in your coordinates and it'll deliver you whatever goodies you desire.
Really sweet. You should do that out on all the ice fishing lakes. You just drop pizzas to people.
Really good idea, actually.
Business idea.
Same place has e-bikes, electronic scooters or something like that, with GPS units on them that they let the patrons ride drunkenly home at the end of the nights, which technically is not driving, but,
I feel like it's a little cold for that, too, right now.
Yeah, right.
But, I imagine it's pretty cold up there anyway.
This week it sure has been.
39 degrees below Celsius. Was it this morning, I think, or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was our wind chill this morning here.
I think it was yesterday we hit 106 consecutive hours of a minus 40 or worse Celsius wind chill.
Oh,
so
that's a lot.
Yeah, it's been a cold few days.
Yeah, my cattle have a water tank that's like 12 feet long, and it's in the barn, but like the barn is not heated, and it's now got this much ice over all of it, except for like 2 little holes this big where they can fit their little nostrils in. So like I have like 60 cows just drinking off that, but I'm not going to clear it out because that's insulating it from freezing all the way, But by next weekend, it's supposed to be 37 above, so just got to hang on.
Thanks.
Just a 60-degree swing. It's going to be great.
These multi-week cold snaps, though, are what keeps down pine beetle populations.
Oh,
but you need weeks and weeks, like, a week or two of minus 30 to keep them under control. So I was kind of happy about that, I guess.
Yeah, it's the same for mosquitoes in Massachusetts, like getting keeping it real cold is what tends to keep the mosquitoes from getting too bad up here.
You know, I was really looking forward to being out of the worst of winter, and like it's all uphill from here, or downhill from here. I don't know. I mean, it's uphill because
It's
the
the easy
temperature's
part,
going
whatever.
up, and my mood will be going up, right?
Yeah.
And like the days are all getting longer now, and I was like, yeah, we get through this cold snap, it's going to be great. And then you reminded me mosquitoes exist. So thanks, Kevin. You've ruined my good mood.
Absolutely. Hey,
Really looking forward to that.
I've had snow on the ground for weeks now. Like, I haven't seen my backyard in at least 3 weeks. So,
I'm sorry, no one on this call is going to be sympathetic to that, Kevin.
Fair point.
Sorry.
3 weeks,
Like
eh?
I saw a guy on Facebook complaining that there was snow, and like I understand that he's in Texas, but I was like, man, I wish I could feel bad with you, but like I had to do chores this morning and it was 39 below. So like,
Fair enough.
I can't feel bad.
You got me there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You got me there.
I've been wearing multiple layers of clothing, like long sleeved shirts, long underwear, under my jeans and under my jacket for like a long time now. So
I had to break out when it's below zero for this long. I had to break out like the full insulated overalls. The only problem is I keep having cows get out and you can't really run in those.
I've been doing ski goggles. I found a pair of them out on my hiking. So I found them, and so I hung them up on a branch at eye level for a week, hoping somebody would come and claim them, and they didn't, so I kept them. That makes a huge difference when it's 40 below and there's wind not blowing directly into your eyeballs.
Yeah.
I can see why they do that now.
Yeah,
How are
I
they
think
with
the worst
the
part
mask?
about it is when your eyelashes freeze together. Like that's really the worst part about 40 below.
yeah. How are the ski goggles with a mask? I know my glasses fog up all the time.
They fog up, but they seal enough so that it doesn't as bad, but it'll eventually fog up. So basically what it does when I leave my house into the 40 below, it gives me like a 10-minute window of walking with seeing where I'm going. And then I take them off and freeze my eyeballs or whatever. There's probably some kind of stuff that snowboarders put on them so they don't ice up. But that's far beyond where I am.
Yeah, but I think they're out of all that shit because people have been using it just for their glasses with their face masks. So like it's one of those things you can't get right now.
Good time to have invested in the anti-fog spray industry.
Yeah. You should have gotten in on the ground floor. Absolutely. Well, should I talk about my mass shooting, or does anybody have any other topics they want to?
Well, before we get to the big news story, we'll cover the little news story that was the impeachment and the fact that Trump was acquitted, and more so the fact that anyone was fucking surprised at that outcome. Like seriously, I've seen so many things online, and I'm not even on Facebook these days, that of people being surprised that Trump was acquitted. I'm like, seriously. Did you honestly think that you were going to get 17 Republicans to switch? Be glad you got 7.
Yeah. And a couple of them were like, surprises. So.
Yeah.
7 is a surprising. Yeah. It's actually a victory in a sense.
Yeah. But like, he was never going to get convicted. Like that was never going to happen.
No.
I honestly thought the whole impeachment show was exactly that. It was just a show. Like
they have to do it.
They could have spent the time doing so much more productive shit, and they chose to waste 5 days of their time on that nonsense. So
isn't reality television great? I mean, the guy just can't.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like all Trump did was he extended his reality TV career by 4 years. Well, 5 if you include all the campaign shit. So.
You know, it's really interesting. Like, Trump himself has not really gotten much attention at all because of the Twitter ban. I have to wonder how he's handling that. And what he's going to do about it. Like, is he just going to explode into some weird, like, he's just going to do something totally wacko to get attention at some point here when he can't take it anymore, that no one's paying attention to anything he said. I don't know.
Nobody has looked at me in 10 whole minutes.
Like,
Yeah.
I do remember hearing something a while back that he, like, set up the office of the former president at Mar-a-Lago, which was just, like, okay, bud.
Yeah.
The office of the former president, huh?
Yeah.
At the golf course.
Yep. It's at the golf resort.
Yeah. That he promised not to live in. And now lives in. It was against zoning to live there, and now he's living there.
They have the
It's
office
like
of the
he-
president-elect, so that's probably where the idea came from.
Oh, okay, right.
Anything he can do to keep some shred of his legitimacy.
Well, he's allowed a stipend for like two staff or something. Like all ex-presidents get like two staff or one staff. I don't remember. But it's like
Like-
Not that he needs it.
For the rest
Deal.
of their lives, or
yeah,
jeez.
to do like press releases and stuff for them, just like they get Secret Service, you know, because you can't let.
God, imagine
presidents.
being the Secret Service agents assigned to ex-President Donald Trump. Like, that must be a fucking nightmare assignment.
That's the assignment you get if you really piss off your boss.
Yep.
Oh, crap. Yeah, no, I mean, the whole thing was kind of depressing because it was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess it's better than not going through the attempt to impeach him, but it is really going out with a whimper, you know?
Yeah.
Which is not great.
But suffice to say, I'm glad it's over and that maybe, just maybe, liberals will actually get their shit together and do something useful for once. I'm not I'm not, like, holding my breath on that.
Yeah.
Sounds like if they can get Washington, D.C. statehood, then that's going to be a huge step forward for anything else they want to do.
I don't know if that's going anywhere, though. Like, I wish it
Yeah.
was, but they made a big deal out of it when they just introduced the bill to the floor. And usually when they do that, it means that they're not going to have anything to make a big deal about later. Like, it means
Yeah.
that that's the high point of support, which there's no good reason for. Like, there's no good reason that Democrats wouldn't all vote for this, because even the most moderate Democrat would get heat off them by having this happen, right? Like the Joe
Yeah.
Manchins of the world would get heat off them by letting this go through.
Because
could-
you know, if DC gets statehood, they're immediately going to elect two hyper liberal senators. So like that just like it's a power play for the Democrats that like they're idiots if they miss it.
Right. And like, there isn't really a good argument against it. There isn't really a nonpartisan argument for like, yeah, we think these 800,000 people shouldn't actually have representation. Like, I mean, I know that's what the Republicans are going to try, and obviously it's going to work on like their base, but like, you know, like centrists, I think, would be pretty amenable to the concept of like, you know, human beings deserve representation in the House and Senate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
although
think it's that hard of a political sell.
I do wonder if DC will want to change their license plate should they actually get statehood, because their current license plate says no taxation without representation. So if they suddenly get representation,
More taxation with extra representation.
yeah,
Well,
seriously.
I mean, it can still be your motto because, like, you still definitely believe in it. You just, you achieved it now. Now you got to fight for Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that entirely depends. Like, Puerto Rico's a complicated one because, like,
Yeah.
it's unclear if they actually want statehood, if they want to become their own country, or if they want to remain a territory
We're
under.
not going to let them become their own country, so I wish they would stop, like, hanging that over people.
Because everybody
Like,
with
in
their
Puerto
own
Rico?
country all the time now, like, good grief. I think we should have the country of Moose Jaw here. And You guys can just do whatever you want.
Yes. Draw up some articles of secession. I'm sure it'll go great.
I'll run it by my fellow Moose Javians.
Yeah, but Puerto Rico has, like a lot of people in Puerto Rico vote against statehood, but it seems to be mostly because they would rather be independent, but like nobody's ever going to let that happen. So like,
Yeah.
And also Puerto Ricans don't have the same taxes. And if they became a state, they would. Whereas people in DC do pay federal taxes. So there won't be any tax increase on them when they get statehood. Like, Puerto Ricans would see a tax increase. So that's the other argument that's keeping Puerto Ricans.
Well, actually, I think it's possible DC residents might see a slight tax increase, not on the federal level, but like it'll go from being just city and federal taxes to now city, state, and federal taxes, because they'll have to have a whole, state government in addition to the city government that currently exists.
I feel like since all of it is the city, wouldn't it just like the city government become the state government? Since it's all the one city?
Maybe. Well,
I don't know.
The part of the process of statehood is drawing up a constitution for the state, so they would have some say into how their state government looks, and so if they want to just transition the city government into a state government, then that may be a way that they go. But there's never been a state that has so little area with so many people before. So
right, yeah. Well, it'd be kind of up to them, like what they want to do. That's why America's kind of a shit show, is because states can kind of do whatever the hell they want.
Yep.
Except for they have to give everyone guns.
Because, my freedom, my guns.
And allow as much hate speech as possible.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Got to make sure you got the hate speech and the
American. Guns and hate speech. Everything else is up in the air, but we can guarantee you guns and hate speech.
Eric, I could see you talking, but I could not hear you talking.
Did you mute yourself, Eric?
Yes, I have.
Oh.
I was trying to decide what to go after first, the guns or the oil, which of course, that's all we want. And so, if a gun was covered in oil, that would be completely irresistible for a liberal to have to, we'd have to seize that immediately.
Imagine an oil rig that just like is shooting out oil, but a bunch of guns inside it.
Right. Worst nightmare, of course.
I just rewatched Mad Max Fury Road this afternoon,
that's
so like that seems completely realistic to me, judging by what I've been watching today.
Wasn't it like 2021 or no? That was the older one.
Yeah, I think that was the old one. Was pretty close to now.
So I managed to get my hands on this little piece
the Constitution.
Of work. This little piece of work here. Last time I was at Barnes and Noble in South Dakota somewhere, Sioux Falls. Anyway,
1 out of 5. Do not recommend.
No, I'm on the first page and I am outraged. And I quote on the very first page of the United States Constitution that I've decided to look at, and am not thrilled about. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians, not taxed 3/5 of all other persons. Now, you would hear that and you would think, oh, the lucky Indians, they don't get taxed. That is not what that means. That means only if we were in a circumstance to have been lucky enough to have an income and therefore be able to possibly own land and pay taxes at the time, were we considered a human being. So, yeah, needless to say, my look into the Constitution for equality has pumped on the brakes. But we'll keep working. I'll try to get past the first page before I throw it out in disgust.
Eric, are you telling me that the Constitution may not be a perfect, inerrant, divinely inspired document that I have been led to believe?
I hate to break it to you, Dell. Yes, it might need revision. We might need settler indigenous revision. Certain things.
Well, okay, so interestingly, a not small portion of the U.S. Constitution was ripped almost directly from the Great Law of Peace that was the Constitution of the Haudenosaunee Iroquois Confederacy. So that's fun.
Interesting.
Yep, so, stuff I've learned about recently that, like, there's a whole video on YouTube by a YouTuber called Twin Rabbits, who's an indigenous anthropologist, and he like went over, you know, a bunch of the story of like how this confederacy of multiple indigenous nations in like you know, northern, what's now like northern New York, southern Quebec / Ontario, all got together and like created this you know, this confederation between them, and then like how the story of this got passed on to like Europe and colonialist America, and how a lot of the ideas that, you know, modern leftists take for granted as being, you know, invented by these European thinkers were largely ripped off by them from, you know, indigenous peoples. So
They were discovered.
Yeah.
oh yes, yes, they were discovered by the Europeans.
Not
That's
just
awesome. I didn't know that detail.
white
Yep.
guy geniuses making up the first concept of democracy ever. Wow.
Well, apparently
I've been
not.
so misled.
Yep.
Right. Like the first man in the North Pole, but that might be a discussion. Look that one up. That's an interesting little. The first man to set foot on the North Pole was from a recently freed slave family and had been pursued by the Ku Klux Klan out of the South, became an explorer and was the first person to set foot. Well, okay, this
I was
is
gonna say,
this
set
story.
foot is a little tricky given the North Pole is in the middle of an ocean.
Well, okay, exactly, but and you can't discover somebody's home. So, you know, as far as European history discovery goes, the guy that got credit for discovering the North Pole was basically the National Geographic Society guy or whatever that could pay this guy to help him, you know, or whatever. He's the one who got credit for it.
Of course.
Completely discounting the African American who actually set foot there before the dude, and the leagues of Innu people who were probably there before, who definitely were there before.
Yeah, but they just don't count for totally non-racist reasons, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Definitely
totally.
non-racist reasons. That's
Dell,
sarcasm.
what happened over by you and your doctor in his office and stuff?
Yeah, her office actually. All 5 of the people shot were women, even though the doctor that this guy was really mad at was a man, which I find interesting. So there was a mass shooting at my doctor's office, like Tuesday. So like 5 days ago. He was in his late 50s, white guy. So, you know, fits half the typical profile of a mass shooter. He had a grudge against this particular doctor's office in the past. He had, in fact, sent quote-unquote disturbing and threatening letters to several places around town. The city, it's not the city I live in, but it's the closest, like, city. Like, it's where I go grocery shopping and the doctor and the post office and stuff, right? There's about 15,000 people in the city of Buffalo, Minnesota. And so it's like, you know, not big, but not like super small. He'd lived there forever, basically. And for at least 10 years, he was well known for his run-ins with the police, like up to 40 run-ins with the police, but very few of them led to anything on his record. He had a marijuana possession arrest, a couple DWIs in the 90s. It sounds like he had a pretty bad drinking problem, for most of that time. He started in 2018 threatening to commit a mass shooting at this specific doctor's office. They did get a restraining order against him. He violated the restraining order, again, threatening to commit a mass shooting there. And they called the police. The police showed up, charged him with violating the restraining order, which is a misdemeanor. Took him for a mental health evaluation, and he was found mentally unfit to stand trial. And under Minnesota law, if you are mentally unfit to stand trial and the charge is a misdemeanor, it just gets dropped. Like, it's just dropped. It's not on your record, which I can understand why they're like, okay, you're mentally unfit to stand trial. If this was a felony, we would have to figure out theoretically what to do with you. But if it's just a misdemeanor, you know, it is what it is, move on. However, this created a loophole in which he was still legally allowed to buy a gun. So when you want to buy a handgun in Minnesota, you have to apply for a permit to buy. Or if you have your conceal and carry license, that just is considered like a complete permit to buy at any time or whatever. Whereas, like, if you don't have a conceal and carry license, you have to physically apply at your city law enforcement or your county sheriff's office, depending on if you actually, like, live in a city. So the sheriff said that he has 2.5 people on his staff whose entire job is just to review these permits and approve them or not. There was nothing on this guy's record that said he couldn't have a gun because that misdemeanor charge had been dropped and all he had was some DWIs. So he had no violent offenses on his record. Apparently, because of the violent threats back in 2019, he was scheduled for an evaluation where they were going to decide if he was a threat to society and needed to be committed, which he did not show up to. And no one has answered any questions as far as, like, what is supposed to happen if someone just skips that meeting.
Yeah.
And did anyone even try to follow up? Should they have? The sheriff in his press conference said that the Minnesota law says if they pass it's not technically a background check, it's a background-like check. Weird technicality. I'm sure it helped them get the law passed, and I'm sure they were just desperate to get any sort of background type check passed that they could. Yeah. The Minnesota law says you shall issue them a permit. So it does not give you an option. Either they have something on their record that precludes them from buying a gun, or they don't. The sheriff did say that there is at least one person that he knows of that has applied multiple times and he has denied their permit. Even though he knows he's not supposed to do that, he said this in a national press conference. It was interesting. Even though he's not supposed to do that, and if that guy takes him to court, he will probably lose. But he just is like, to be frank, he's not going to pay the legal bill, right? I mean, the sheriff's department will pay the legal bill. Yeah. And he's like, you know what? Not going to let this guy have a gun. So what he was trying to say between the lines, there was a whole press conference in which he said a bunch of stuff where he's not actually legally allowed to reveal any of this, because another thing the Republicans did is, have you ever heard those scare tactics about, like, if they make us permit our guns, everyone's going to come to our house and steal our guns because it's just going to be a list of all the gun owners. Has anyone ever heard that? Yeah. So gun owner permit data is, like, super locked down. Like, you can't tell anyone anything about it. So some of this is from anonymous sources within the department that talk to the media. And some of this is stuff he said in his press conference. And he was like, I can't tell you anything. But hypothetically, we have 2.5 people working and, I have used my discretion before to...
Exactly. Like, I've used my better judgment before everybody, but in this particular case...
Well, he doesn't actually... I'm not sure he's the guy that necessarily signs them. You know what I mean? Right, like, he has 2.5 people whose job it is to go through. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he does need to put his signature on it.
And who is this half person?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just half of one person's job description, or maybe they work part-time. I don't know. But Yeah, so I mean, he kind of insinuated that had he known, he would have denied it, even though the law tells him that he has to, but he didn't realize. He's only been sheriff for like a year and a half, too. Like, he ousted, because sheriffs are elected, so he ousted a guy who was a incumbent. And this guy that we have now, he like used to work with the FBI. He's very slick and good looking and good in a press conference. And so anyway, I was like, why is he bringing this up? This is kind of an unforced error, unless this is actually really what happened, that he's trying to tell us this, even though he's technically not allowed to tell us this. He'll just tell this hypothetical, but he can't tell us whether or not that's what actually happened. But it could have been what happened, you know. But anyway, then some other anonymous sources talked to the press, and the press is reporting that, yeah, that's absolutely what happened. Is legally, there was no way to deny him a permit. So yeah, he also set off 3 pipe bombs, so that's nice. His entire goal, as he stated for the last 3 years, was to kill as many people as possible so that it would make the national news. So yeah, gun laws are working super great.
Well, I thought it was my understanding that, and you said this guy has like a history of instability, mental instability or something that made it so that he didn't get charged with misdemeanors.
Right. So I don't know exactly how it works or what the documents say, but when they tried to charge him with the misdemeanor, he underwent a psychological evaluation that said he wasn't fit to stand trial. Now, in the case of a felony, you would be committed if that happened, right? Like, you still get punished for the felony because you're ruled like a danger to society. You're just not, you know, it's just like the insanity defense to murder, right? It doesn't mean you get 0 punishments, but it means you get not jail time, right?
Well, you would hope that same judgment would disqualify one from gun ownership.
Nope,
on its own.
Doesn't.
So it makes it so certain charges don't stick, but you can still walk right in and get that gun.
Right, because if it was a felony and he was incompetent to stand trial, it still would have been on his record that he was found guilty of the felony, and it would just have affected his punishment for the felony. Mm-hmm. But the law in Minnesota is if it's a misdemeanor and you are not mentally fit to stand trial, you just drop it because it's just a misdemeanor. Now, right. I don't know why they didn't charge him with a fucking felony. I mean, he was making terroristic threats. Is that not a felony? Hell, just last week, a kid who called in a fake bomb threat to his college to not take an exam got sentenced to like 1.5 years in prison.
Right.
Okay? Like, this guy was saying he wanted to, kill as many people as possible in this doctor's office. It seems to me like you could have found a felony to charge him with. You did not have to just charge him with violating the restraining order, right?
Somebody made that choice, right?
Yeah, making threats, making terroristic threats. I mean, surely it's a threat to say you're going to kill people when you have a restraining order. Like if I have a restraining order against someone, and not only do they violate it, but they also threaten to kill me while they're violating it, like, surely that's a little more serious.
Here
than
it
just...
is called uttering death threats here in Canada, and as far as I know, it's a felony.
Yeah,
but you would think, and especially given the circumstance that he was under some sort of conditions, that uttering death threats would disqualify one from owning a firearm. I know one of the questions when buying a firearm in the U.S. is, are you addicted to marijuana? Which I do not know is even a thing, So, if there's the possibility that you're addicted to marijuana, you can grab your perfectly legal morphine or whatever the opiates are these days and a 6-pack of beer and go hunting. But anyways, so that disqualifies a person, but not.
Well, he had a number of different drug violations, a drinking problem for many decades, long-standing, a lot of open bottle citations, a lot of DUIs, marijuana possession at least once. His former roommate gave an interview that said he would sniff paint a lot when he was out of painkillers. He apparently had a back surgery a number of years ago, and that was the main impetus of his thing with the doctors, was the back surgery. He felt like had made it worse for him, right? And so he was trying to get painkillers, got painkillers at various points. Hard to say if he was actually like trying to get painkillers any of these last couple years, or if he was just like, you know, because if you're in that kind of pain and you can't get any painkillers, you're still going to be really mad at them, even if you're not addicted to the painkillers anymore, right? I mean, the problem is if you're in that kind of pain and that's why you got addicted to the painkillers, the problem is not solved when you solve the painkiller addiction, right? I mean, he was in a horrible state, and they have done a really good job redirecting the conversation away from the fact that the only thing they were doing at this clinic was COVID vaccinations and COVID tests, because they don't want people to think they're related. But I have a really hard time imagining. So this guy apparently was really well known in the trailer park where he lived for constantly putting up signs about how doctors are terrorists and doctors are trying to kill us all and stuff. Isn't it a little hard to imagine that this guy had not heard of any of the COVID bullshit going around about QAnon stuff, and that didn't energize or activate him in some way? Like, yeah, this is my time. People are getting it now, right? People understand now that the doctors are evil. And they've done a really good job keeping the conversation away from that, which I suppose is a good thing. But I just feel like they're purposely, you know, because he apparently recorded a whole video. I mean, he turned himself in. He went into the clinic, he threw 3 pipe bombs, he shot 5 people, and then called 911 and turned himself in. None of whom were the doctor that had the restraining order against him, weirdly enough. They were all, like, nurses and stuff. And one of them died. 2 or 3 are still in critical condition. One of them has died. One of them was discharged within a few hours. Nothing serious with her. But yeah, so that was pretty terrifying and upsetting. And I kind of had a really hard time with it because I was in a school shooting when I was 14 in which 2 of my classmates were murdered. And I was just really angry thinking about other people having to go through that, you know? So, yeah. And I'm really mad that, you know, and it's the same thing with my school shooter. Like, he should have never had access to a gun, but his fucking cop dad left loaded guns all around their house. So his kid, who had just turned 15 and was severely mentally ill, like, you are not supposed to be able to have schizophrenia below the age of like 20. And he had just turned 15 and, like, full-blown delusions, like whole hosts of imaginary friends, did not hang out with any actual real people ever, like full delusions. And, yeah, so he just was like, oh, my dad keeps loaded guns all over the place, and just picked up a loaded gun and took it to school and shot some people because he didn't like them, and he thought that his imaginary friends were going to come save him. So, yeah, just another situation in which irresponsible behavior with guns gets people killed that don't have to happen. Which, as a legal gun owner and gun user, I just don't see any fucking excuse for, to be honest.
Right.
That is insane that you've had to experience that in your life. You know, like twice on such a close level. That is insane, and I'm sorry you had to.
You know, and my school shooting, like, I didn't know them that well, and I didn't, like, physically see anything happen. So to me, it wasn't like this, like, formative experience of my life or anything like that. But it has been just, like, a background piece of information that it's like, you know, people it's like people who are afraid of flying, right? It is much more dangerous to drive your car than it is to fly. At any given time, when you're in a public place, you should not be afraid of a terroristic attack, right? But like, when they start to sort of pile up like that in your life, it becomes a little harder to tell yourself that it's not rational to be concerned about it, you know?
I think that there's fundamentally something wrong with a society where you can say that you you went to a school where somebody was shooting people at your school and it wasn't a formative experience.
Right.
Like, that, I think that speaks to it being far too common of an occurrence. Like if somebody had brought a gun to the school that I went to, it would have been a huge thing that everybody knew and everybody remembered for their entire lives. Like it would have made them who they are on some level.
I think a big part of the reason that I handled it. Okay, so my husband and I went to high school together as well. We didn't start dating till like late college, but we did go to the same high school, and like he doesn't see it as super formative either. But in general, my sense from my classmates is the kids we had staggered lunches because we didn't have enough room in the cafeteria to feed everyone at once. So we ate lunch in 3 shifts. God, when you were on the 1 p.m. shift, that fucking sucked. I was eating lunch when it happened. And when like the announcements came on, like code red, like put yourself in the room or whatever. So I didn't hear anything. The lunch ladies just came out and yelled at us and told us to go to a classroom with them. So I thought it was a drill the whole time. So like, I didn't spend a lot of time afraid, right? Like, I didn't really know what was going on until the cops came to the room, let us out, and made us run across the parking lot with our hands up to a different building, which is where we were all gathered for our parents to pick us up and take us home. So, like, I only had about 5 to 10 minutes of feeling scared. Whereas, like, the kids who were in classrooms with their teachers and who had to, like, cower under their desks for an hour while their teachers cried or found baseball bats or whatever, like, it was much more traumatic for those people to have, like, an hour of, you know, kids around them crying and saying prayers and everybody thinking they were going to die. Whereas I was like, why the fuck can't I get my lunch? This is the stupidest fucking time for a drill. I was very hungry and very angry about it. So like, and this was before cell phones. This was 2003. I mean, the sad thing about it is a school shooting with 2 dead kids, I feel like would not even make the news now.
Oh yeah, probably not. Yeah.
But in 2003, it was a national news story, you know? And I was far more angered by like the vulture media response to the whole thing because they kept mispronouncing the name of our town, misstating the name of our school, like harassing 14-year-olds to tell them stories about it, like a girl that shooter had a crush on. They had her give interviews and stuff. And like, she's fucking 14.
Yes, that's horrible.
Like, leave her alone, you know? And like, don't have cameras in kids' faces. Like, so like, I was really angry about that. How would you expect
someone to feel? You know, like there's just questions you don't ask.
Well, and like anything you ask her is going to put things in her head, right? Because he emailed her the morning before the shooting telling her what he was going to do. But it was 2003. No one checked their email between 6 and 8 a.m. in 2003. You probably checked your email once a week. Like,
yeah.
A lot of people didn't even have email addresses, right? But like, I don't know, like she barely showed up to school by the time we were juniors and seniors. Like, I don't think she had a good home life either, but I was really angry about the media response to it all. I was a little angry about, you know, the way principals and stuff handled it. We got 1 day off school. And then, yeah, you know, like 2 grief counselors or something. And the really, really unfortunate part was one of the kids was shot in the head. And he never woke up again, but he did not die for about a month. And that was really, really hard on the students because none of us really understood that when someone gets shot in the head and is in a coma, it's not like television. Like, we really thought that it was going to be like TV. We're like, yeah, if somebody's in a coma, there's like a pretty good chance they wake up, right? Yeah, that's not how it works. So like every single day it was, you know, what's happening with him? How is he doing? What's going on? And so like that really drug things out a lot. And I think, you know, all the praying and everything else, And, you know, it's like CPR, right? Like on TV, when they're giving CPR, you're like, yeah, he's going to make it. In real life, if someone is getting CPR,
it's likely they're done.
Right. So, like, I think adults do a better job of, like, yes, we can have hope, but understand that all we have is hope for a miracle. And I think when you tell 14-year-olds whose only experience of comas or medical situations comes from television, like, yeah, it's important to have hope. Like, I think those kids it's a very different situation to quote unquote give them hope in that way. If I'm getting across what I mean at all. Like everybody really thought that it was going to be like TV and he was just going to wake up and be alive. And like, he got shot in the brain. Like you don't really wake up from that hardly ever.
Yeah. And even if you do, then it's not like you make a full recovery, right? Like,
right. Like, so yeah, I don't think anybody was ever like straight with us about that. You know what I mean?
That was a very well put insight into that whole thing. Like I've talked kind of like the rest of us studied these things from a distance, but to actually talk to somebody who's been through it is completely different.
Well, I don't know. I feel it was really funny. I already had a therapy appointment scheduled for Wednesday when this happened Tuesday afternoon. I was like, oh, that's convenient. And I was like, I feel like this is bothering me more than the actual shooting that I was in is bothering me. And my therapist goes, that's why it's called PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Right. Because a lot of the point of PTSD is that you manage through the actual event and that it's about lingering effects many years later a lot of times. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. And another thing, like, I did not know any of the kids involved very well. Like, so it wasn't like they were my friends or something, in which case I'm sure it would have had a much bigger impact. But yeah, it's just, like I said, it's just like you can tell yourself that these events are rare and stuff, but when you have it happen, like, repeatedly so close in your life, like, you know, it's just becomes a lot harder to tell yourself, like, yeah, that's just a statistic. Violent crime is going down. It's all fine.
And this is rural Minnesota. You know, we're not talking about.
Yeah, big city.
And yeah, both completely avoidable with some common sense gun laws. So, you know, I'm sure we'll get probably some sort of crackdown on people with mental illnesses that will only be used incorrectly and not actually solve any problems. I don't know.
Because
we're a blue state,
ableism in gun laws never happens, right?
Right, yeah. You can't have a 22 to go shoot gophers or rabbits or whatever, but yeah, you know, we'll sell this semi-automatic pistol to someone for... It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and you don't need a background check to get a long gun in Minnesota. Like, you don't even need that permit that I was talking about. You do if it's an actual, like, assault rifle, and you do for a handgun, but you don't for a long gun, necessarily. I don't know. They do some kind of check, but it's not as extensive, I guess. But... Yeah. Brutal. But of course, you know, my uncle, who works at the local farm and fleet behind the gun counter and has to request all of these permits, thinks it's all bullshit. So, you know.
That's helpful.
Just way too much work for no reason, in his opinion.
Right.
Wow.
Family great.
No reason. Sure.
It's hard to know where to go with gun saturation is the only way I can put it, you know?
Well, yeah, and it's pretty hard to know, like, even if his permit hadn't approved, would it actually have been hard for him to get a gun?
I feel like it would have been a deterrent. No?
Yeah.
Sure, and there's nothing wrong with deterrence. You know, I lock my gate. It doesn't mean that somebody can't just step over it and grab whatever they want out of my backyard, but it's still lock the gate, right? It makes it that much harder for them to do it.
Yeah, I was catching up on an old podcast that I was a few months behind on, and they were saying something about, they were making fun of some guy who had posted on Facebook, like, like, I'm not a pussy, I'll shoot you or something. And they were like, shooting someone isn't hard. Like, it's not physically hard. Like, literally children do it on accident all the time. It's not physically difficult. And that's just why I feel like those little deterrents, like keeping your guns stored properly, keeping them not loaded, like stuff like that, it prevents gun suicides, it prevents gun accidents, and it prevents impulsive gun crimes because it is so easy to do catastrophic damage with a gun. Just being able to block that little bit of impulse, like, oh, now you need to wait 24 hours before you can get it. Like, people change their mind, they change their mind about suicide. They change their mind about killing people, like just putting those little barriers in the way,
Or
it makes a difference.
Even in the time it takes for that kid to say, okay, I can't just grab this gun and go. I have to figure out where the bullets are, figure out where the clip is, unlock this, maybe in that time, the thought processes might go.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, isn't there something, I remember hearing something years ago about how, like, the idea of having a gun when you're in the heat of the moment, if you have access to a firearm, you're much more likely to use it. Where, like you say, if you're pissed off and you have to go through 6 or 7 steps to get to your gun, even, like, we have, you're not allowed to have a loaded gun in your vehicle in Canada.
Right.
So, I mean, just that all by itself means
I guess you must be able to with a conceal and carry, but I know you can't, like, with your hunting gun. Like, you have to transport it cased and unloaded. But you must be able to if you have conceal and carry. I suppose you can.
I don't think you can have one in the chamber.
Okay.
Carry.
I don't know.
Big, half a second, like, whatever am I going to do about it?
A half a second is better than nothing, right?
True.
It is. Like, that's what I mean. Like, the more barriers, the more you're going to stop. But, like, little things like that, just like the way they make fun of laws about, like, how big of a clip you can get. Like, Republicans make fun of those laws and stuff. And, like, I get it. I get why you're like, hey, this isn't really going to help that much, but it helps a little. And a little is like the difference between 10 people shot and 20 people shot.
Yeah.
So seems worth it. Like,
Yep. It sure helps. It sure matters to those extra 10 people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I also think it's really interesting that in both cases, my school shooter and this guy, they both handed over their gun freely and walked away because they had done what they wanted to do. Nobody stopped either of them.
Right.
Like, so, we could do a more comprehensive thing on cops, and, like, Corey and I talked a bit about cops last week.
They're bad.
But they didn't do anything in either of these situations, except for in the first situation, provide the fucking gun because his dad was a cop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the second situation, approve the permit for this guy to get a fucking gun. So, and both of those people put down their gun and turned themselves in. My school shooter just handed it over. A teacher yelled at him and said, put the fucking gun down. So he popped the clip out and handed him the gun. And the teacher took him by the arm and locked him in a room with the student counselor and called 911. And in the case of this guy, people had already called 911 because he had been in there for a couple minutes. But I guess the sheriff said he just ran out of people to shoot because they had locked themselves in the rooms. And so he had a whole bunch of ammo left and stuff, but he just walked back to the entryway, called 911 and said, you should come here. I shot a lot of people, put down his gun and laid on the ground and waited for the cops to show up. So, like, both of these people quit of their own accord. Like, nobody, and the cops sure didn't stop them. They enabled both of these situations to occur. So, like, what exactly are they doing to prevent crime or
What are
stop
they for
crime?
even?
I argue virtually nothing. But I
Yeah.
don't come armed with much data for that point at the moment. Just-
Sometimes anecdotal evidence is all we need.
Anyway, I'm done ranting now. I think I made all the points I wanted to make.
Well,
I just tried to avoid breaking out into song about how all cops are bad.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
All cops
like,
except Zach. If you're listening, Zach.
for like 2 years, I thought ACAB meant assigned cop at birth, and I was really confused.
That's so good, actually.
I've heard that one before, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone who thought that was what it actually meant.
I've met guys that I think that would apply for, so
Fit the persona, yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
so
my
good.
professional firefighter dad is the one who taught me to hate cops. So, because he had to work with them all the time and said they were all assholes. So,
I didn't realize that existed in the firefighter community, but yeah, apparently it does. Yeah, there's a bit of animosity sometimes.
yeah, firefighters kind of feel like they're there to get a job done, and cops are there to play hero and think they're important. And it doesn't
Yep.
really play well between the two groups.
Well, and it
This
goes
is
to
why I'm much more supportive of the thin red line over the thin blue line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it goes to show we can have organized forces for good that don't abuse their power. You know, NWA did not write "fuck the fire department."
No, exactly.
I might have quoted that one on a previous episode, but it's NWA, so you know.
It still works. Yeah, it holds up.
Right. I like to think I have special permission from Eazy-E, even though he said his specific words were "Don't quote me, boy, because I ain't saying shit." But you know.
I also read a very interesting article about police, but maybe I'll have to do some sort of deep dive and bring some interesting police insights next time. But I read something
Sure.
really interesting. It just involved like racial attitudes and different races of police officers. It was pretty insightful. But
Cool.
I've got a spellbinding documentary to talk about next time. I'm not going to get too far into it because, it's very emotional, so I have to do it in installments, and it's completely riveting and fascinating, so I'm going to get a little more of that next episode. I will drop the name of it, called Rumble, Natives That Rocked. It's fascinating, but yeah, I'll bring that to the table next episode.
Cool.
we're previewing next week. Corey and Kevin, what are you going to bring?
They're charming personalities.
Yep, pretty much.
I will try to have something prepared.
I'll probably join you, Dell, in the showing
Yeah.
that cops are shit.
We should write
yeah.
a sea shanty about how cops are shit, maybe.
Okay, so I have a friend on Twitch. His Twitch channel is Mitnerd36, and he's a musician who does a lot of covers of other songs, but he's written several of his own, one of which is just entitled "All Cops Are Bad." And the line goes, "All cops are bad. They don't protect, they don't serve, they just enforce with a gun. All cops are bad. The only good cop isn't one."
That's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, there's an old like Polish Russian song called "Doloj Police," which literally means "down with the cops," but there have been a couple of updated versions of it, which say "Doloj Police" means the same thing now as yesterday. Shit. Oh, fuck, I can't remember it. But it's essentially just fuck the police. So,
In Polish.
In Polish and folk.
yes. Yeah.
No. I would appreciate for myself a data-driven approach to the conversation because that's
absolutely.
the kind of person I am. So that's what I'm going to try to do. But you just
Yeah, no,
took my
There's
raw
more than enough
intuition
data
right now.
out there to show that the entire institution of policing is
That's fair.
highly problematic.
we had an officer a couple of years ago get charged with impaired driving, and I immediately came up with the slogan to swerve and overcorrect, and it didn't even get much likes on Facebook. I was very disappointed. Comedic genius is what I offer. To swerve and overcorrect.
You are an underappreciated comedian, Eric.
Very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. That was all the appreciation I need. That'll keep me going for another week or so.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Alex Vitale, author of End of Policing, over on my other show. So I learned quite a bit about his views on the police and the various problems they present. So
I will be
really
listening to
book.
that. I'll be listening to that immediately and looking into the book.
There's a good YouTube channel you should definitely watch in your research, Dell. The name is That Dang Dad, and he is a former police officer who is now in favor of police and prison abolition.
Nice.
Cool.
That dang dad.
Yep.
All right.
Well, guys, what do you think? Should we?
Let's start the closing of the show.
Indeed.
You can find us on skeptarchy.com. Our Twitter is @skeptarchypod. Our Facebook is facebook.com/skeptarchy. And you can email us at skeptarchy@gmail.com. Kevin's Twitter.
I am on Twitter at AncomPsychom. You can also find me streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/anarchistlaboratory.
I am @hardcore skeptic on Twitter, and you can search for Corey Johnston. I haven't fixed this yet, so you can search for Corey Johnston on Facebook.
I am @More Cowbell
And
on Twitter, and I am Dell on Earth on Facebook. Yeah. Hit me up. Tell me, convince me that cops are helping. I'll see what I can find to refute you. I like to do arguments that way. That's fine.
all right.
I am on Facebook at Eric Ray Standing. And what did we figure out, Corey? Yes. No, that is wrong.
That's
I
wrong.
think. That was the cool name I wanted to use. The one I actually did use was, I think, at Eric Standing.
Yes, I think that's correct. I'm going to fix this. There. It's fixed.
Well, once again, guys, it has been incredibly awesome.
Yes,
Yeah,
thanks.
good time,
for,
good talk.
I just want to briefly show off my new
Ooh.
Wow.
Is that a saw?
log peeler.
Oh, a log peeler. Cool.
Yes. I have no logs to peel, but should the opportunity arise, I am ready.
There you go.
There you go. Now, anybody listening in podcast form will have to come subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Find out what Eric was showing
we
us. It's great. It's a perfect hook.
We
That's
absolutely want to hear all the stories about all the logs you'll be peeling.
Absolutely. I will show one item that you can unlock per episode.
Yes, the Wonder Woman tumbler.
Is that actually Wonder Woman? Because I was at the gym, or was I at work?
Yes.
Anyways, a former Marine friend of mine said, do you like Wonder Woman? And I was drinking this, and I said, maybe a little bit as a kid. And then he pointed out to me that this is, in fact, a Wonder Woman power drink blender. So, yes.
Yep.
Yep, that is
Excellent.
a Wonder Woman tumbler.
I'm confident enough to rock a Wonder Woman blender.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have an awesome rest of your weekend. I will catch up with you in... Is it a fortnight? Is that what 2 weeks is? Yeah?
Yes. Fortnight comes from 14 nights, i.e. 2 weeks.
Okay. I thought it was how long it took a regiment to build a fort.
Knowing that.
See, I thought it was how long a regiment took to build a fort, which was 2 weeks.
I thought it was a month because it was 4 weeks. How am I 31 years old and I just found out what a fortnight is?
Well, I'm 43, and that's this is the first I've heard of it. So,
Because old-timey measurements are coming back.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
All right.
hitting the end.
Kevin.
I'm hitting the end
Okay.
button.